our speaker today is going to be online. He's in Brazil. So his name is Pedro. Pedro is a Ph.D. candidate in Oceanography at the Universidade Federal do Espírito Santo. And currently he's a visiting graduate research student at the Durham University. Since Pedro got his oceanographic degree as a bachelor, he's been working in different fields related to ocean mapping. And today he's going to be talking about multispectral multibeam. And I hope you all guys enjoying it, okay? Pedro, all yours.
So, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for this opportunity for you all. Thanks, Daniel. My name is Pedro Menandro. I am a Ph.D. candidate from Brazil. My supervisor is Professor Alex Bastos. And also I spent some time at Durham in Halifax under supervision of Professor Craig Brown. So my presentation today basically contains the main topics approached during my doctoral research. And the title is Multispectral Multibeam Backscatter, Advantages of Using a Multifrequency Methodology for Seabed Classification. Okay. Yes. Well, I'm not sure about how familiar sounds the backscatter for the audience, so I think it's important to start with the basic concept. So the scattering of acoustic energy back towards the sonar is called backscattering, the definition by Lurton. And here we can see an illustrative scheme showing us the acoustic emission, the interaction of the sound with the seafloor, and the reflection back to the equipment. So this result allows us to distinguish the hard substrate and the soft substrate. Yes, this is too basic, but well illustrated the idea of the backscatter. And just a point here that is important to emphasize, during my presentation, we will be talking about the backscatter from multibeam. So backscatter from side-scan sonar is not part of my PhD doctoral research. Okay. In the context of seabed classification, a detailed understanding of marine habitats is required to meet multiple ocean management needs. And we know that accurate habitat classification based on backscatter has already been able to present final scale characteristics of the seabed. Okay. So here is just to show the importance of multibeam, how multibeam is widely applied in the scientific literature on seabed mapping. So in this graph on the right side, extracted from Harris and Baker book with many chapters on habitat mapping, we can see that backscatter is one of the most useful and measured data set for the both editions of this book in 2012 and 2019. And some other papers, review papers, showing us that multibeam and also backscatter, multibeam backscatter are really important data for seabed classification. Okay, now just pointing, bringing the focus to Brazil. So although this GeoHub Atlas, the Harris and Baker book, point out that the backscatter is one of the most collected and useful data. In the Brazilian case studies in this book, we have 7 case studies, 7 chapters, just 2 using backscatter, and these 2 use side-scan sonar backscatter. So traditionally in Brazil, the term backscatter is still more associated with the more widespread use of side-scan here in Brazil. Okay, so this is the bathymetric grid available by JEBCO. So although 32% of this current grid is composed by multibeam bathymetry, the backscatter is unknown or even not recorded. So we can see that Brazil is definitely not the backscatter paradise. Backscatter research is carried out by a few groups, even with all the difficulty of funding science. And considering the main themes of backscatter research here in Brazil, we would venture to say that is more focused on data processing, maybe calibration, and the multispectral research, always as background of the Seabed classification. So here the first part of my doctoral research that resulted in this paper published in 2020, the Seabed mapping, a brief history from meaningful words. So here we carried out paper mining, so a total of 454 papers were considered, and from this paper we extracted the more frequent words and another statistical lexical statistical to understand the evolution of seabed mapping techniques and also the increasing importance of the backscatter role as a tool to map and classify the seafloor. So here we can see the 4 word clouds for the last 4 decades, and always backscatter appearing as an important data set. And on the left side, it's a bit small, I guess, the word cloud for each year in the last decade, but almost in all of the years, the backscatter is appearing, showing this important position as a proxy for seabed classification, right? So multispectral backscatter, still in this importance of the multispectral backscatter, we see that backscatter is considered an important predictor for seafloor purpose and surrogate for benthic habitats. So multispectral multibeam backscatter has been developed to characterize the seabed in greater detail, yet the methods for the use of this data are still being explored. So there are no standards as we can see for bathymetric processing and this other kind of data. So here just a scheme, an illustrative scheme showing the multispectral acquisition. So it's actually alternated pings, and each ping with one frequency, and then you can processing and filtering the frequency. And I put just some papers to show that, for example, this first paper, multibeam sonar backscatter data processing, is from 2018. So it's really new research topic. Okay, but why multispectral? This potential for greater discrimination, it's interesting think about the optical remote sensing, the satellite remote sensing, which uses the multispectral bands. So this is an important point to understand the potential for greater discrimination of seafloor with multispectral backscatter. And still emphasizing this importance of multispectral backscatter is one of the branch teams of the backscatter working group. The backscatter working group, yes, is a working group with many researchers around the world, experts in backscatter. So the first is the guidelines for backscatter measurements and all the concepts. It's a very, very important reference. On the right, the image showing the different data sets with different equipment, different vessels and softwares, and to see that there are no standard for the processing and acquisition. So this should not result in this kind of patchwork, but there are a lot to be done yet to harmonize these different data sets. The third one is a report of the backscatter workshop 1 year ago. And in this workshop, the multispectral was established as one of the branch teams for backscatter research and investigations. Okay, so we know that backscatter depends mainly on substrate, on angle and frequency. So again, a scheme showing the a weaker return indicating a soft bottom and a stronger backscattering indicating a hard bottom. and above the APL graph showing the decreasing of backscatter with the increasing incident angle. So it's another approach to analyze the backscatter. And here just to show the processing that I basically carried out during my PhD research. So I use the FMGT software. The processing is basically the acquisition parameters correction, the frequency filtering, and the creation of mosaics. And besides, you can also output this text file with important information, for example, incident angle, corrected backscatter value, frequency, depth. And from this file, you can open many possibilities of analysis. So we can plot angular range curves. We can rasterize backscatter values of a specific angular sector in the swath. So it's a very good file to analyze the backscatter, I would say. Here there are many variables you can extract from backscatter data. Textural variables from the mosaics, for example, the GLCM parameters like mean, curvature, variance, contrast, and others, and also angular response curves. So these results derived from the backscatter can be analyzed in two main approaches or school of thoughts that are the image-based analysis and the angular range analysis or angular dependence. And just a remark that this amount of variables increase the dimensionality of the data, and this effect is multiplicative in a multispectral context. Okay, is one of the difficulties of the multispectral data is the dimensionality of this data. So here just more examples of image-based analysis, extracting textural parameters from the mosaic, or the RGB building the composite analysis, which represents each frequency represented by one of the bands. So, and the angular range analysis, you can plot the angular response, and I already mentioned it, but here just to show that when you look to the single beam data, we can obtain a good correlation with backscatter data and different Seabed types in this paper. But when they look to the multibeam data, the backscatter value from the multibeam, the correlation is not that good. And this was attributed to the low correlation of the multibeam measurements, maybe due to the selection of the reference angle from multibeam angular profile. So this is an important topic of research. And here just some more examples of published papers about a number of possibilities to analyze and classify multispectral backscatter dataset, and point out that these approaches you may use one or another, or also approach combining both approaches. You don't have to choose one or another. You can combine the approaches and reach good or better results with the combined. Well, I think it's a good start to show my specific research I've been developing in my PhD. The first part is a combined approach using both image-based and angular range analysis. Resulted in this paper, applying a multi-method framework to analyze the multispectral acoustic response of the seafloor. We evaluated the potential for seabed discrimination using multispectral backscatter data within a multi-method framework. And here here the study area. It's in southeast of Brazil, in the state of Espírito Santo, close to the Doce River mouth. So it's a region predominantly muddy, up to the 55 and 30 meters. And the data set comprises bathymetry and backscatter, multifrequency, acquired by Artosonic in 2024, echo sounder. The frequency 107, 208, and 400 kilohertz. We also acquired 700 kilohertz, but this frequency was not included in the final classification. All systems integrated in QPS Queen software, and the post-processing was carried out using QPS Chimera and FMGT. And here just the basic flow of the methodology. So from the multi-frequency backscatter data, we divided the two approaches, image-based analysis with visual interpretation of mosaics, the basic statistics, textural parameters extraction using the GLCM script in R, and multispectral composite image was used for a kind of dimensionality reduction. I can explain in the next slides. And the angular range analysis, we extracted the backscatter values for each angular sector. For each 10 degrees, we extracted the backscatter values. And also the angular response curves. And all these variables were then clustered by density-based clustering approach for the Seabed classification. Here the study area again, the Doce River mouth. So there are another huge project. So there are many bathymetric data and backscatter. So my specific research was around this area. So this is the bathymetry used with some features like these steep features and some obliquous and elongated feature. And this feature is very important in this work. We will be talking about it. You can also see here in the slope. Okay. Here just this detail on this step. This is not so trivial. So just actually here we run a mean shift algorithm for segment the RGB mosaic. So this is the function, was the function for the RGB image. We segment with high level of detail. These many segments were then overlapped on the mosaic stacking with 18 variables, textural variables and angular range variables. So then a matrix was for each segment, all the information for each variable were extracted, and then a matrix was created, scaled, and clustered using the dbScan package in R. Okay. Now the results: one mosaic for each frequency, two examples of profiles to see the difference in the between the frequencies, and the variance extracted by the GLCM script. And here we can see always the elongated feature with high backscatter values. Okay. And here is why we did not include the 700 kilohertz, because when we get 25, 20 meters, the data set was not usable. So we decided to not include it in the classification. And here the angular results. So the backscatter values were extracted for each 10-degree sector. So in the first column here, we can see the 10 first degrees near the NAD region, then 11 up to 20, 21 to 30, and 31 up to 40 in the outer beam. Okay, the results demonstrated for the most of the area decreasing backscatter was associated with increasing incident angle and frequency, and also frequency. And the exception occurs over this high backscatter feature, which mark this feature with high scattering across the entire swath. So we can easily recognize it in all the angular sector and all frequencies. Okay, and the angular response curves can be broadly divided in three main groups. So the yellow one is you can see a low decreasing in the first 20 degrees close to the nadir region, following by a high decrease in the outer beams. The brown one is more typical of mud sediments with high backscatter level loss in the outer beams. And the green one is most similar to the sand or another hard sediments with low decreasing of backscatter across the entire shelf. So we can see a low backscatter level loss in near nadir region or far nadir region. Okay, and all these 4 green stations here were extracted over the high backscatter feature. The combination of all this data, the combination of the PCA and density-based clustering enables synthesizing a large number of backscatter variables to inform the classification. And the graph, we can describe the graph in a hierarchical way. So the first, we can see 2 broad and well-defined cluster in a reachability distance of 0.88. That would be basically like a mud and okay. And when we further divide the cluster 1 at a reachability distance more detailed, we can produce further cluster, 4 subclusters. And when we spatialize this graph on the map, we have this. So the first graph and the second one, cluster distributed throughout the study area. So to conclude, backscatter mosaics potentially suggest 2 or 3 Seabed classes, while the angular response curves at the 12 sample sites suggest at least 3 Seabed types. And density-based clustering enabled the integration of the results from multiple approaches to produce a comprehensive unsupervised classification of the seabed using multispectral backscatter. And both image-based and angular range analysis produced input components for the final classification. And the combined use of both helped to ensure that all the relevant information was included. And that's all for this chapter. So the next one. Sorry. The next one is using multispectral data, of course, but in a different seafloor type and using a different approach for seabed classification. So although technological and methodological advances have achieved a high level of detail and accuracy in seabed classification, some gaps remain to be investigated, sure. This work on rhodolite have ecological relevance and is also important mapping consideration since the rhodolite beds are typically classified in a single category, so it's generally presence or absence of rhodolite, even though the coverage and density of these nodules can be spatially variable. Okay, and although these beds have a global distribution, the scientific research on rhodolite is still relatively limited compared to other coastal vegetated habitats, such as seagrass and kelps. And if we consider acoustic mapping on rhodolite, the catalog is even more limited. So here I include 2 examples. The first one using a single frequency backscatter, and then apply image-based segmentation to analyze the heterogeneity of rhodolite beds. And the second one actually is not rhodolite, but I think interesting because they analyze backscatter data varying as a function of the nodule size and the nodules concentrations, the polymetallic nodules. So it's important for this work for my chapter. So here's some studies on backscatter and rhodolite. We can see that none of these studies apply the multispectral backscatter on rhodolite, and nor did apply combined approaches, the angular range and image-based analysis So it's a gap to be investigated. So here the data collected, my study area is close to the first chapter area, around 50 kilometers south from the Dos River mouth. So the data set is multibeam bathymetry and backscatter. Operating frequency the same, 170, 208, and 400. And 33 sampling stations of drop cameras. So here we did not use sediment samples, we use imagery stations. Okay, so here our imagery system is actually a frame, metal frame, that have two cameras looking to the bottom and looking ahead with two lights. Okay. Here the methodology applied. So backscatter processing, the same, carried out in FMGT. There are not much to say here. The ground truth processing. So the bottom view images were individually processed using the freeware ImageJ. So the processing is basically image enhancement, tuning the brightness and contrast. After setting the image size, so the frame is a quadrat, 60 centimeters, and after hand delineating the rhodoliths. So with this, we can calculate the rhodolith coverage area for each sample station. And these results of the rhodolith coverage area provided the reference for establishing the Seabed classes and training and classifying the support vector machine model. So the SVM was trained using a mix of packages in R to produce a classification based on each individual frequency, single frequency, and also the multi-frequency input. Okay. This work is not in prepared, is under review actually, but is not yet published. Hopefully soon will be there. So here we can see each image sample site and some examples of for each class. So we have no rhodolith class, less than 15 rhodolith percentage coverage, between 15 and 35, and more than 35. And then here the main results with backscatter, the mosaic for each frequency, and the composite image with the three combined frequencies. Backscatter profile shows the general response crossing two different valleys, two channels. So we know, and I can show then that the first north one is covered by rhodolith. So we have two different response from the lower frequency and higher frequencies. And this south one is here. The response, the acoustic behavior is similar, and the coverage is not rhodolith, it's unconsolidated fine sediment. So it's interesting to see these different responses. And here the angular range curves for each frequency, for each class as well. Okay. The outputted SVM model. The model predictions were based on presence and absence. This for single frequencies and multi-frequency. SVM models for 4 class, so single frequency and multi-frequency. So the 208 and 400 kilohertz models basically distinguish the north and central areas from the south area, while the 170 kilohertz almost did not differentiate the no rhodolith area in the south area. Yes, in the SVM multispectral, the model seems to have combined all the advantages of each frequency and enhanced the Seabed classification, the C4 discrimination. So the accuracy metrics hopefully will be available soon in the paper, but I decided did not include it here for this presentation. Okay. Yes, the final of this chapter. So the collected image were not used solely as conventional ground truth to validate or an interpretation, but rather used for rhodolith quantification, effectively constructing parting of the input data to train and classify the model. The higher frequencies, we can see that when applied separately, the single higher frequency as input indicated greater proficiency to discriminate the presence or absence of rhodolith. Meanwhile, the 170 kilohertz, the lower frequency, was essential for modeling the different concentrations of rhodolith. So this result showed greater relevance, both from the point of view of innovation in the analysis of multispectral backscatter, and also by demonstrating the potential to differentiate these rhodolith beds with different concentrations of nodulith. And the classification showed a general trend toward a more expressive presence of rhodolith in the northern area, here in this area, which is consistent with the bibliography. So here in this paper of our group, we used image-based classification with bathymetry and single frequency backscatter to produce this output with different classes of seabed. And here just as a curiosity, in this paper, actually we use a dataset composed by two systems, R2 24 and Reson 7101, with two different frequencies, 170 and 240, with different softwares for acquisition and processing. And these differences were handled to handle this difference for this paper. We applied a bulk shift function to harmonize this difference, but it's not official content of my doctoral research. Just to link with these questions on the backscatter working group. This is one of the issues we have for uncalibrated data and how to calibrate and how to harmonize different legacy data. You know, it's I think it's interesting. Well, actually, my doctoral content finished here, and just moving along to finish the presentation. Here, some future directions. One of the hot topics today is about carbon storage and blue carbon. And there are a few studies starting this investigation, trying to relate the backscatter with carbon content. And here I just put an example of conference abstract, trying to relate the organic carbon with backscatter. And here one more example. The authors analyzed the potential of acoustic backscatter to prediction organic carbon. Actually, in this paper, is not that improvement by using backscatter, but it's important to investigate if it would be possible to extract more information with multispectral in this context. Okay, so finishing my doctoral research, I am starting this study with two seasonal surveys in a region, in Abrolhos region in Brazil. Two different seasonal surveys in a region where there are different coverage of macroalgae and according to the seasonal conditions. So we will look at the backscatter data and investigate if there is any spectral signature for the macroalgae specifically, and also for this variation, the seasonal variation on the seafloor coverage. And not sure about the carbon storage discussion, it's still being conceptualizing. Okay. Still in the beginning, the data set, the bathymetry, the multispectral backscatter, and some images showing the macroalgae covering the seafloor. Well, that's pretty much all I have to show you. I'm glad to try to answer any doubts. My email is here if you have any questions. And many thanks again. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks the CCOM organization by the opportunity to be here presenting my research. And by the way, my PhD defense will be held on next week. And hopefully next year I will be keep doing research on backscatter. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pedro. So now we're gonna open up for questions. Anyone here? Oh, John?
Hi, Pedro. Enjoyed the presentation. You took advantage of FMGT to do all your processing, and I'm kind of curious how confident you are in that the data is properly reduced. You showed the first area was less than 25 meters, where you had the 3 classes, and then the area with the rhodoliths was 50 to 80 meters. And I'm assuming that those 3 frequencies you were using, you'd have to have changed pulse lengths as you went through that large range of depths. Was the pulse length changed, and did FMGT correct for that, or were you using a fixed pulse length?
The bathymetric data, we applied just one frequency for the bathymetric data correction. I'm putting in the FMGT as well. But to be honest, I'm not sure how the FMGT used the bathymetric data to correct the backscatter. So, because in this file we can also see the, sorry, here. In this file we can also extract the depth for each beam, but for the mosaic, I guess is not used this depth. So, sorry, I'm lost in your question. Can you question again?
I'm curious, when you're running that 2024 between 20 meters to 80 meters, I can't imagine it used the same pulse length the whole time. Was it in
Yes.
selective pulse length? And if it changed,
during the acquisition, you mean?
Corrections, or does RT Sonics do that before the data comes out?
No, we run a line crossing all the area from 10 meters up to almost 100 meters, and define acquisition parameters for all the areas. So the acquisition parameters was not changed during the acquisition. I'm not sure if it's answer your question.
Yes, so at the beginning of the survey, we go from 10 meters, whatever, to the shallowest point, to the deepest point, pinging at the 3 frequencies at the same time. And during that line, we set up like the best configurations. And as soon as we define it, we just run the whole survey with the same configuration, never change it. Yeah, so we have one configuration for each frequency.
Yes.
If you needed to go deeper or shallower, how would you handle that?
Just leave it.
Okay.
Yes. I helped him collect the data.
Okay.
Anyone else? Do you have online questions? No? One more question, John.
Yeah, you mentioned in the very last one with the macroalgae, you mentioned multi-frequency geomorphology. So it's not the backscatter. It sounds to me like the different frequencies track differently in the presence of macroalgae. Could you expand on what you mean when you say multi-frequency geomorphology?
Yes, actually in this last work in the macroalgae, indeed, I am expecting a better response from the geomorphometric properties, multi-frequency geomorphometric properties, than the multispectral backscatter, because I'm not sure if the macroalgae we would identify this level of detail, but it's very in the beginning. So any suggestion would be very welcome.
Reina?
Sorry, I know this one is a new research.
Can you hear, Pedro?
Not very well.
I'm saying it's a part of your extended research, but I was curious what part of the backscatter data you're using for, or the group will be using for carbons to like get information for carbon storage changes.
And what part of the backscatter data are you using for carbon?
Yes, in the current study, it's a almost obscure correlation. So low backscatter values indicating mud sediments with more organic carbon, but it's very new. So I have to study how we could establish this link between the backscatter and carbon, but not yet defined.
Right?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. Enjoyed it. I might have missed this, but I'm curious. So I sort of come from a more electromagnetic remote sensing background, like satellite remote sensing. And typically there you'll use different indices, different combinations of frequency bands and things like that to pick up different features. Is that something that you or others have been doing, or are you doing that here? Like I said, I might have missed that, but I was curious to know if you could take analogs from the electromagnetic remote sensing for use in backscatter.
You mean if we try different combinations of frequencies?
Yeah, take the data from different ones and do like for vegetation, you do normalized difference vegetation index. You just take different ratios and combinations of the data for each point and infer things about what you're seeing based on that. I don't know if any of that is happening in the multispectral backscatter world.
Not sure. Yes.
What's the ideal population? It's
For like vegetation, there's certain spectra, because it's like vegetation responds to like green lasers, like you got water vapor, like that's one thing. So water content that responds to certain frequencies. Green vegetation have very specific light frequency,
range.
right?
Okay.
There's a range. If it's like you do a scan right now, you're gonna get all the colors and the leaves are gonna bounce out, and that's gonna be different spectral frequency range.
Okay.
So sound is very different. It's not, at least I haven't seen anybody say anything about like having a specific frequency associated with a specific thing. It tends to be more broad characterization of this is softer, this is harder, this is probably really hard, this is probably very soft. And then like, I mean, that's most of the things I've seen.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody's gone through
In such detail.
pulled out specific ratios of frequencies, this means this versus that. That's kind of what I think
Okay.
is
You get it?
probably not. But
I don't think we do that in the backscatter. I never saw that in such detail like the way we do with satellite image.
Questions in the chat.
Okay, there's a couple of questions online, Pedro.
Okay.
Read them out. So the first question is, according to your response to the first question regarding the pulse length, during processing, did you consider the fixed pulse type?
No, actually, I did not put this in consideration. We used the same pulse type for all the survey.
Next question in the chat. I'd like to ask how you provided the SVM with ground truth data sets, and what percent of the data set did you use as your training data set and test data set?
Yes, for each image, we put like a arrow position error because of the position of drop camera is not so good as multibeam and backscatter. So we include 15 meters radial, 50 meters radial, and consider that all this area would the same class. The percent of classification we calculated in the image J. So in each image, we delineate the rhodolit and calculated this percentage area, coverage area for each image, and extrapolate these 50 meters radial. And this way we trained the SVM model, and with all the samples, because there are just 33 samples, so we decided to train with all the data, and then calculate the accuracy with another approach.
Any question?
But all the images were used in the training.
So there is time for one more question.
Brandon, you raised your hand
Yeah,
online.
there is one more question online, Pedro.
Let's see if I can
Okay.
Hi, Pedro. Yeah, thanks for that talk. I just want to expand a bit on this SVM, the support vector machines. You mentioned you put a bunch of variables into this classification. Could you expound on what these variables were? I might have missed it. Sorry if you did discuss that a bit, but could you just expand on that a little bit?
Which the variables?
Yeah, I think I saw a slide somewhere saying you put, I don't want to say how many, but over 10 variables into your SVM classification.
Okay, we use applying for each single frequency first, just one frequency, considering presence or absence, trained by the image, and then with the multi-frequency with three frequencies inputted combined. So the models, let me show you here. The single frequency, it's just one input of the mosaic, and the multi-frequency, three frequencies inputted as the data to be classified.
Okay, great. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there is one more question. Last one. It's online, Pedro.
Okay.
Did you set a threshold to the SVM model to classify the presence or absence of rhodolith?
Sorry, I didn't get, sorry.
Did you set a threshold to the SVM model to classify the presence or absence of rhodolith?
No, actually, no. We have the confusion matrix as a result, and after the accuracy matrix, but I didn't set any threshold for this.
Is everyone happy online? Okay, I think that's all, Pedro. Once again, thank you so much for being our speaker today, okay? And that's it, guys.
Thank you very much again.
Best of luck next week.